Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, taking a look at next week's slate in the game that I am by far most excited for, just because it's two teams that I absolutely love. Michigan heading on the road to play the Nebraska Cornhuskers Memorial Stadium. And Bill, I'm going to start out with this. Any Michigan fans listening to this, thinking about making the trip out to Lincoln, Nebraska, 100% recommend. We were at this game 2 years ago. Best fan base, best game day environment. It honestly can't say enough. So if you're thinking about going to a road game, get in the car, make the trip out to Lincoln, Nebraska, grab a little runzas on the way. Like, this is one of the best game day environments. I can't wait to kind of break down this matchup. And as much as on paper, it's like Michigan is the heavy favorite, and I probably would agree with that. Nebraska at home, especially with the defense that they're playing, can make this game hairy. Kind of excited to get into some of the matchups here. Now, before we do, again, just want to say thank you to you guys and the Michigan fans. Y'all know we rock with Michigan. Love talking about this program, and the support you guys have shown truly does mean a lot in Nebraska. Like, this is another team that I absolutely love talking about, the support from the Cornhusker fans as we kind of talk this Matt Rhule era. It's truly been phenomenal. We've been waiting to break this game down. So appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, but more importantly, let us know in the comment section how you guys are feeling. We learn a lot from you guys. We love chopping it up about ball with you guys. Dill, let's get into this. I'm going to kick this one off to you. Michigan heading on the road to Lincoln. How we feeling here?
I mean, yeah, and as you mentioned, on paper, this feels like a game Michigan should handle. But when you look at Nebraska, the way they play defense, and if
So good.
they can just make a game of mistake-free football for the most part, I'm kind of fascinated to know how good this Nebraska team can look. Because, again, they probably should have beaten Colorado and Minnesota if they just didn't have 4 turnovers in both games. I think this team's way better than their record says, and we've been saying that about Nebraska for too long now. So, again, at some point, the mistakes need to stop.
It's a classic Matt Rhule quote there. You hit us with the – I listen to every Matt Rhule press conference, one of the best listens ever, and he always says, when you win, you're not as good as you think you are, and when you lose, you're not as bad as you think you are. And I think that is – honestly, there's some truth there. And I'm not going to get up here and say, like, oh, this Nebraska team is going to go out and win a Big Ten championship. That being said, like, you do cut down on some of those mistakes. Like, this is a different narrative around this Nebraska team through 4 weeks. Dill, I want to start with this Michigan offense going up against this Nebraska defense that we've talked so much about. We've done deep dives into this Tony White system. Michigan, going back to the TCU game, trying to run the football in that 3-3-5, it was tough sledding. Like, outside of that Donovan Edwards 70-yard run, really struggled with the blocking schemes, really struggled with all that speed in the secondary, coming down, firing downhill. My biggest kind of eyeballs will be, can Michigan get this rushing attack, their identity of their offense, going against the Nebraska team that not only presents that 3-3-5 that has given Michigan some fits, but has been really, really good at stopping the run so far this season.
In the real test, will be dealing with the big dogs in the middle with Hutmaker and Robinson, who are playing at an incredibly high level. And I think coming into this, you knew those two would need to play really well for this Nebraska team to be tough, because obviously last year they did give up a ton of rushing yards, and they were giving up pretty much everything on defense. And with Tony White coming in, you knew, like, when you see that 3-3-5 work, you have a really tough nose guard. You have 2 defensive linemen who can, again, make plays in a very difficult spot when you are facing double teams and have to deal with that. And those two, they've answered the bell, and that's set the tone for this Nebraska team. They're rushing the passer, they're stopping the run, and frankly, when Michigan doesn't get the run game going, I know it's getting better, and JJ is maybe able to more handle a load of an
leaning
offense,
on him. Yeah.
But you still don't see Michigan playing as clean as they do when that run game's really cooking.
Yeah, that's the story of this game is because, again, going back, if Nebraska can win on 1st and 2nd down and stop the run and force Michigan into some 3rd and longs, but we've talked about it. Tony White in that 3-3-5, when he gets in those blitz packages and loads the line, you don't know who's coming, you don't know who's dropping. That is when Nebraska is most dangerous. They've done a really good job getting after the passer. Michigan's got to stay out of those, and that partially is starting to get going on the ground, winning on 1st and 2nd down. Now,
I will say the big thing is, I know, like, you look back to that TCU game, yeah, they couldn't run against that 3-3-5, but when they have Blake Corum, I mean, he's there in terms of just staying on schedule with the rushing attack.
100% agree.
He is the guy for Michigan. Donovan Edwards is explosive. He makes he's really good in space and obviously has that home run ability. But just purely in between the tackles, Blake Corum needs to be the one shouldering the load and kind of keeping Michigan on schedule. Because when they stay on schedule, and they've been able to do that for the most part this year, they're really, really tough to handle.
And I'm wondering if Michigan can kind of attack that middle. That's something that we said through the first 2 games we loved, and then against Bowling Green and a little bit against Rutgers, we kind of gone away from attacking that middle of the field. That's where I think you would want to. I think Nebraska got some really good backers, especially when it's getting their nose in the run game. Test them athletically, test them in coverage. Because again, you look at those boundary cornerbacks, like they're really, really good. They got some really good safeties, but maybe where you can kind of attack a little bit is that middle of the field, getting Colson Loveland loose, getting Roman loose and Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson loose. That's probably the keys to the game on that side of the ball. Now flipping.
We even saw that against like Minnesota when they were able to move the ball. It was short, quick passes in through the middle to both the tight end and wide receivers. They really didn't get much going on the boundary because this Nebraska defense in the secondary is just too good out there. But again, you kind of mentioned it. If you can take what they give you and not start pressing, which has been a bit of an issue with JJ at times, is pressing
100%.
Mistakes. But if he can just stay composed and kind of attack that middle and that zone in the middle, you can move the ball a little bit on Nebraska, and that's been what's worked. It's just really hard to do that. And again, if you make a mistake, it makes it really hard to, again, stay on schedule and be able to beat it because you just don't hit enough big plays against Nebraska right now.
All right, flipping to this Nebraska offense, it's obviously not pretty. We're listening to Matt Rhule in the press conference and talking with some fans in the comment section. I think it starts up front, especially in pass protection. And so when I look at this matchup, Nebraska's got to figure out a way to, again, kind of similar to what we just talked about with Michigan, stay out of those 3rd and longs. Because one, Harbaugh, Jeff Sims, whoever you see at quarterback, that is not their strength, right? It just isn't. They want to be guys that are on schedule, can use their feet. When you get in those 3rd and 7 pluses, you have to kind of throw from the pocket, push it downfield. It's where they struggle. But most of all, I think what's led to this Nebraska team struggle on the offense side of the ball is not only turnovers, obviously that, but the pass protection just hasn't been up to snuff here.
Yeah, in this offensive line, just in really both phases of the game, it's like the pass protection's been really weak all year. The rushing attack, they've been able to get going at times, but just consistently, I don't see this offensive line, and I know they want to run this more physical style of rushing attack. It's just right now this offensive line doesn't really feel like they can consistently do that. They do give up negative plays. They don't, again, they're just not consistent enough to do I play, I think, the way they want to play. So to me, that makes me think you got to go to the stuff that's kind of worked, which is like the speed options, getting Billy Kemp into the flat, using Fedone up the middle off of play action. That's the type of stuff that's worked. I think they need to really hammer that and just do it nonstop. And because, again, I just think given the way Michigan's defensive line's playing, and even with Mason Graham out in the middle, they're so deep. They're so good. I mean, Chris Jenkins and Kenneth Grant are both playing so well right now. I don't see how they can run maybe the way they want to run. I think they're going to need to try to do something a little different and play a little bit like, I mean, there's a reason Army Navy, they play that way.
Yeah.
They don't have the offensive line personnel given the standards they have.
We talked about that. Like, as a play caller, like, you got to play to your guys' strengths. And as of right now, like the speed option and kind of the quick hitters, that's what's been working. And again, I think it starts with because you can't really pass pro. And then you look to the wide receiver room. There's like, Nebraska fans know at this point how much I love Billy Kemp, but he's not a guy that's stretching the field vertically. He's much more of a short, intermediate route tree guy. Fedone is a middle of the field guy. They don't have, I mean, Marcus Washington, I think, can do it, but struggle with injuries and drops. And then you have some guys like Malachi Coleman, who I want to see, but they don't have that personnel that really makes a defense scared of kind of attacking that deeper third, which I think kind of limits their playbook a little bit even more. So, like you said, I think it's imperative for Nebraska to do what works for them right now. And next year, you're probably going to see a different offense. Maybe even in 6 weeks towards the end of the season, when you get to November, you see a different offense. But as of right now, like what's worked for Nebraska, speed option, getting the ball out quick. I think that's what they're going to be needing to be able to do to keep this one close still.
And that's really the only way to attack Michigan because right up the middle, they're so good. I mean, the interior defensive line and the linebackers are really playing at a high level. And frankly, that's been kind of how you attack Michigan in the past, is to, again, be even Rutgers was trying to do it. Like, a lot of their stuff was out to the perimeter, and it was their really only shot. And they didn't move the ball incredibly well. I don't think they necessarily have the talent that Nebraska has, even though the talent on Nebraska hasn't necessarily been taking care of business. But that's what I think. Nebraska, I just don't see how they can run the way I think they want to run it. They need to, again, play.
That's why they're going to the speed options and kind of some other things, which I give Matt Rhule credit. Like, do what works for this ball club right now. They'll getting to the pick here. The line's not really popping. You see some like 17 to 20-ish. I'll just ask you game prediction, how you think this one goes, and we'll close it out here.
I think 17 is around where it should be. And again, I don't necessarily see this game getting like way out of hand. Like,
no,
I think on paper it shouldn't. Just because Michigan doesn't really play a style that gets games out of hand. They have long, sustained drives that, again, they might run in a 6 to 8 minute drive in a quarter. You only get really 2 of those. So,
yeah,
I don't see that. Nebraska's defense is frankly way too good. And again, I think if their offense really puts them in horrible spots with turnovers, that's where you might.
Yeah, when I look at it, that's the only way this gets out of hand. It's the only reason the Colorado game got out of hand. If they don't turn the ball over, like, that game is close in the fourth quarter. So if Nebraska plays relatively mistake-free, I think this game can be competitive. And 2 things that worry me: one, Lincoln, Memorial State, like that, it's going to be rocking there. It's going to be absolutely jumping. This Nebraska defense, we said it right after the Minnesota game, is going to keep this Nebraska team in a lot of games, even though the offense has definitely not been up to snuff lately. That being said, from an upset standpoint, it's hard to see Nebraska getting this one done. So I just don't think they have enough firepower.
When your offense is playing the way Nebraska's offense is playing, where it really has had very few answers to, again, even teams that they really should be able to move the ball on, it's hard to pull an upset off, and especially when you can't hit big plays, which they've really struggled with. So I don't necessarily see an upset here, but I do think this game is probably, it's not what I'll be racing to bet Michigan on with.
We were there 2 years ago, and it was way more hairy than we wanted it to be. So, like, again, Michigan going to have to be on their P's and Q's for this one. It's going to be a great game again. Whenever Michigan, Nebraska are playing, I'm going to have eyeballs on it. Can't wait for this one again. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys as you always have. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.